After 2 years, virtual reality racing brings you a brand new championship featuring some of the most exciting race cars on the planet. We have lifted them from the likes of Sandown, Winton, and the legendary Bathurst, where Australia's V8 supercars will be the weapons of choice for this season, as our drivers battle it out on a variety of circuits. Welcome to round 1 of the Marathon GT World Tour. My name is Taylor Mills, alongside me as always Olivia Hayward, and behind the buttons Amity Pulsatrix, and we will be live from Lights the Flag here on ABN. In fair Daytona, where we lay our scene, the high bank to the Speedway and twisty infield present a unique challenge for these cars, and the oval itself will provide an opportunity for draft battles galore as those higher speeds make those tricky braking zones even trickier. 12 turns, 4 to the right and 8 to the left, made up of 5.4 kilometers, 5.7 kilometers of Floridian tarmac to create one of the most iconic ovals in the world. And to help guide us through proceedings tonight, British F4 esports driver for Prismatic Motorsport, my long-suffering co-commentator, Olivia Hayward. Liv, it's a brand new championship with a very different style of racing to what we're used to. And we've seen what these cars can do in real life this morning. So what do you think we can expect from tonight's racing?
I'm not sure we can expect it. We have to wait and see what these drivers can do. The thing about these cars is, of course, we know notoriously tricky, not really built for a circuit like this, and also fairly new to iRacing. So a lot of people still getting their footing in on these cars and working out what they want to be, how they want to be driving it. So I think it'll be a learning experience throughout the championship. We'll see who can adapt the best to it. And for this opening round, I think we're going to see a fair few mistakes in the drivers who can keep on top of the difficulty of this car are going to be the ones that succeed.
See, even in sprint racing, we always say that the best way to finish a race well is to finish first and foremost. And you said it yourself, that these cars are notoriously tricky to drive. And anyone who's driven here at the Daytona road course know that on the whole, it's a very difficult circuit in and of itself. You've got some very long curved braking zones down into turn 1. Turn 6 is the same story. And then of course, trying to pick up the throttle to get the car moving back onto the banking out of 7 often provides a lot of oversteer and a lot of tricky moments, which is a lot of what we are expecting to see here tonight. It's, as we say, not the sort of track that these cars come to. They are often on those much smaller racetracks over there in Australia. But we do have qualifying about to get underway. It will be 10 minutes of solo qualifying, as you would expect to see in an iRacing official race. So we have cars on track. Eva Melton going to be the first one to get out that big kick of oversteer, even on pit exit. So just a demonstrator of just how hard these cars are to drive. They might look a little bit like GT3 cars, but they're not built as sophisticated. There's no traction control, no ABS. It is just pure V8 grunt. It is car and driver, and it's going to be whoever gets on top of these cars fastest that will come out on top tonight.
Yeah, and I think the most brutal thing isn't even the lack of assists. It is that fully locked rear differential. It's something that you won't have any prior experience with unless you're into drifting, really. And even that experience, that's not the fastest way around the racetrack. So you've got to be so cautious on the power. There are different throttle curves available to these drivers, and I think that will be a crucial part of how to get settled in. But you've just got to have a very disciplined right foot to be able to navigate these cars through those traction zones without coming across them.
Yeah, we're just following along with one of the cars that is starting a lap.
Rebecca Rennie.
Sorry, not starting a lap. On their outlap, that's Rebecca Rennie, who we saw having a little bit of a moment on the exit of the bus stop just as we were running through our intro in that gorgeous Chevrolet Camaro. And one of the big draws about these cars, and one of the reasons that I'm so excited to be watching these things scream around the high banks of Daytona, is that great big naturally aspirated V8 engine in the front of these things. You can hear how good it sounds on board. Now you can hear just how good it sounds off board. We're going to have a field of these cars flying past the cameras all night tonight. It's going to be absolutely glorious. Down into turn 1, I think that is even Melton we're following on board with, as he just about tries to get it all tucked in to that first apex, touches both of those curves through turn 2. Big kick of oversteer on the grass on the inside of that chicane, and watch how the car dives on the brakes into the first of the 2 horseshoes. Very tricky to get back on the power. I think that was another small kick of oversteer. You can see all the way on the run down to turn 5, that car is not stable, Liv.
No, absolutely not. You can, even in the corner, in that differential is going to be causing you trouble, and then you get on the power, you have to have the wheel pointed as straight as possible before you get that power down, because otherwise the car's just gonna escape from underneath you. As Eva comes through this tricky turn 6, coming back onto the oval, nice and smooth there from the 81, and onto the high banks, foot to the floor.
Just getting a touch on that yellow paint on the inside there. Always driving it like a NASCAR, trying to take the shortest route through as possible down towards one of the hardest braking zones on the circuit, down at the bus stop. Let's see if she can get it all tucked in on this first flying lap. Makes it through the first apex, second apex, third and fourth relatively cleanly. Just trying to look at my overlays to see if there is any sort of penalty for that one. It does look relatively clean for the driver of the 81, as it is a big flat out blast to the start finish line now. And just to touch on the cars again, because we're going to be talking about these things all night, because they are wonderful, wonderful race cars. It's one of the few cars that you really truly have to respect. As Eva Melton comes across the start finish line, it's going to be a 148.9 to open proceedings, as she goes very deep down into turn 1 and illustrates my point almost perfectly, locking up the front brakes and just going way wide into that first corner, not quite on the esports line that we talked about so much during the Daytona 24 week. But yeah, this is a car that you really need to respect because of the lack of assist, because of how heavy it is, the amount of torque, how little grip there is at the back. If you ask too much of this car, it's gonna bite, and it's gonna bite hard.
Yeah, and then of course the tires are not particularly long lasting in these cars either. They're taken quite quickly, so in a pit stop expect drivers to take all 4 tires. But in terms of a qualifying run, you really have to respect that. We've already seen Bia Constantinu reset and take a fresh set of tires for a second attempt after off-tracking in the bus stop. So some of these drivers, that might be a strategy to consider of, after you finish a lap, maybe rather than going immediately for a second attempt, just reset and getting another fresh set on, because even when you don't make a mistake, they lose pace very quickly indeed.
Rebecca Rennie then jumps to the top of the timing sheet to the 1 minute 47.624 at the moment, 2/10 ahead of Derek Miller, as at the moment it isn't a front row lockout for either manufacturer. And of course, with the V8 supercars, there is that huge manufacturer rivalry, GM versus Ford, and you are one way or the other, and you don't typically stray. So we do have an even amount of cars in the field tonight. I don't believe the championship is tracking manufacturer points, but definitely something to keep an eye on as we go, because I'm sure a lot of these drivers are going to have their little manufacturer, what do they call them, alliances, as we so often see in motorsport. And again, it's just one of those really cool things about the V8s. We often say we don't like tribalism in motorsport, but I think one of the longest lasting ones is this big rivalry between GM and Ford. And I'm looking forward to seeing it play out here tonight at Daytona. Back following your provisional pole sitter of Rebecca Rennie on board that Chevy Camaro. Ooh, it was a big cut of the first apex of the bus stop there. It should be legal, but again, keep an eye on that one as she makes her way around to the start-finish line yet again. This does look like an outlap and building up to a lap. It is, in fact, an outlap. So you'll see her take that high line to try and build some speed, run the ramp at the end of the bank in, and come across that start-finish line with as many Ks on the clock as possible, feeding it back to the inside. And Liv, why don't you take us for a hot lap around Daytona?
So turn one here, absolutely the hardest braking zone. You've got to get on the brakes so early in these cars. Drifting out a little bit wide, you see the rear end wants to come around, you use that for rotation, get back on the power, feed it through this kink of turn two. It is going to be flat even in these cars, and then get to the left-hand side on the brakes, and for the international horseshoe, very tight to the inside. You see just down to 45 mile an hour there, about 72 Ks on the apex. Coming through the kink, you're going to have to bleed some speed off here to get around and stay in. You want to try and get as far left as you can, get back on the brakes for the west horseshoe, and once again dropping below 55 miles an hour. Come back through, and then turn six, the tricky oval entry. It's a reverse of turn one. The entry's okay, but the exit is where you're really going to struggle. Bia Constantini goes to the top of the board in the number 57 as we go on board with this lap. Can Rebecca respond? As she gets the power down onto NASCAR 1 and 2 into fifth gear. It's going to go up into sixth, I imagine, coming out of NASCAR 2, and then pick your braking point for the bus stop. You want to try and get the braking done early and sort of let the car roll through the mid-corner. Taking as much as you can. 1, 2, 3, back on the power. 4, a little bit of an oversteer moment, a little bit more of an oversteer moment, and I think that might compromise the run here through 3 and 4 to the start-finish line. This will be the last attempt for Rebecca Rennie to improve here, so it looks like, unless Derek Miller or in the cars behind him to say about it, it is going to be Constantino taking the pole for tonight's race.
Rennie looking for 0.6 of a second as she comes to the line. Across it she goes. I'm not seeing any no, it's a 1/10 improvement, but it isn't enough to dethrone Constantino. Are we going to see any more attempts from anyone else in the field? I think Derek Miller still out there on a lap on the brakes down into turn 6. We know Rebecca Rennie has just finished her run. Eva Melton on pit lane. Kelly Height not on track at the moment. No, not on, sorry, is on track at the moment up there in NASCAR 1 and 2, but I'm not seeing many, if any, improvements up and down the field. Bailey Thompson just started their last lap, but at the moment though it's looking like Bianca Constantini's 146.9 is going to be really, really tricky to beat, especially with the gap as high as half a second over the rest of the field. It's not a tight field here tonight, but we're hoping with the amount of straight line speeds or the amount of drafting opportunities there's going to be, it should keep that field nice and bunched up and close together for the duration of this event, as we have the ABN chopper cam providing us some gorgeous, well, shots of the circuit from so high above it. Just trying to figure out exactly who that is we are following through the banking as the qualifying session does come to a close.
Ali just got a lap in at the buzzer there and did manage to jump Eva Melton up into P5. We actually have a fairly tight field given how tricky these cars are to navigate here.
And you often find that's the case with cars that are quite difficult to drive. Everyone's sort of backing off in exactly the same way, and it's what helps those lap times get a lot closer together as everyone is starting to get gridded up for the start of this race. Let's have a quick look down the field and see exactly where everybody lines up for tonight's first of 2 races. Bianca Constantinou then will take the pole position alongside Rebecca Rennie, and behind them just on row 2 would be Derek Miller and Bailey Thompson, and to round out the 3rd row of the grid, it will be Kelly Height in 5th alongside Eva Melton in 6th. Again, an even split of Fords to Chevrolets. It is a Ford and a Chevrolet on the front row as the BMW M2 safety car will bring us through the bus stop for a rolling start here tonight.
And it is worth mentioning, of course, different manufacturers bop together in the real world in iRacing because it's identical cars. So it is just a matter of allegiance in terms of what car to pick. They will drive the same, and it's just about which driver behind the wheel can find the most pace out of it.
It's going to be cold tires, cold brakes, almost cold engines, cold drivers on the run down into turn 1. It's going to be a question of how late does Bianca Constantinou choose to take that green flag as soon as that safety car pulls in.
We will be starting on the green here.
Well, there you go. It will be a matter of when does that green flag fly. Constantinou just holding that inside line, but Rennie ready as ever on the outside, squeezing Constantinou right down to that yellow line. Keep your eyes on Barney, the flagman, as the pace car is going to pull into pit lane in just a moment. And there it goes. Bianca Constantinou controls the field. And we're waiting for that green flag. Big run down into turn 1. As the green flag flies, Constantinou is away, and it's a great start for Constantinou as Rebecca Rennie is going to drop back. But on row 2, it's going to be Derek Miller, who's had a great start and actually gets up the inside of Rennie. Bailey Thompson looking around the outside of Rennie as well, looking to make up a position. But Miller from third on the grid makes his way up into 2nd almost straight away and is already looking to hunt down Constantinou. A bit further down the field, we've got Kelly Height challenging for position on Bailey Thompson. Miller, though, going very deep into turn 3, just about gets it all gathered up. But Rebecca Rennie with a great run through that 3rd corner might have an opportunity to try and get by into turn 6 after losing that 2nd place off the start. It's not going to present itself an opportunity yet, but the field is going to close up right at the front. And as these two look like they're going to start battling, Bianca Constantinou is going to be looking behind saying, yes, please, and yes, thank you. The only thing I want right now is to start running away.
Yeah, Bailey Thompson goes deep into the West Horseshoe. Kelly Height now up to P4. We've got Fords 1 and 2, and then Chevrolet in the 3 spots behind. And as we start to build up, Rebecca Rennie still in the draft of Derek Miller. That's going to be the key thing. It's about how to slipstream through here as Bailey Thompson looking right and actually to the outside of Kelly Height into the bus stop. This is going to be a tricky one to navigate. And it looks like the 33 will back out of this one, slot in behind and go for the run on the exit. Bailey Thompson defends, and this will bring us around to finish the first lap of what is forecast as 17 in this race, a 30-minute timed event here, where a pit stop is expected but not mandatory. So if you can pull off the fuel save to eliminate that stop, that is an option, and with how long the pit lane is here, it would save you a lot of time indeed.
Fight for P4 really starting to hot up. Kelly Height looking for a run around the outside as turn 1. It's going to be a big shot to the rear just before the apex of 1. Bailey Thompson is going to go very wide just past the apex, but it isn't going to open up the corner enough for Height to have a look. She's going to peek to the inside. Is she going to go for a late dive on the brakes? Yes, she is. Takes that inside line. Gives Bailey Thompson no choice. There's more contact in the middle of the first horseshoe. But Kelly Height will move up into 4th place as Bailey Thompson getting left behind a little bit now.
Yeah, and also this is letting the top 3 run away a little bit. It's a 1.3 second gap now between that front trio and the pack behind. Rebecca Rennie just sat in that slipstream of Derek Miller right now. And this battle, it's going to hurt your tires, but it's also going to slow you down through the corners. Bailey Thompson, that's very deep into turn number 6, is going to fall off the back of Kelly Height. Has a bit of a moment on the throttle as well on exit. And I think that could be that battle done for the time being. And now it's up to the 33 to try and focus forward and close back in on this lead trio.
Well, we were talking about the pit stops, Liv. These cars are fueled about 1.2 laps short in terms of fuel to get to the end of the feature race, wasn't it?
Yeah.
After this one. No, it's a 15-minute race after this one. Yeah, this is the feature race. Doing it a little bit backwards. Feature race, then sprint race. But yeah, fueled up about 1.2 laps short of the end of this race. So just from the body language of the front three, you can see that they're already just getting in a little bit like a NASCAR race. Getting into line, just trying to stay in each other's slipstream and maybe try and get that fuel save done. You said it, Liv, these cars chew through tires really, really quickly. And it might be the deciding factor as to whether or not someone wants to make a pit stop. But even though the pit lane speed limit here at Daytona is quite fast, it's still a very long section of racetrack to get through, as Miller with a big kick of oversteer. Really starting to chew through those rear tires, gets the kick of oversteer yet again. The rear's just having that temperature build up in them. Really difficult to hang on to a set of tires once you've scrubbed them as hard as Miller has, but he's doing a great job to hang on to it so far. Still about 1.1 seconds off the back of Constantinu, and just about keeps it under control for that second horseshoe, but these cars proving very tricky to drive in race trim.
Yeah, Constantinu with a bit of a slide through the middle of turn number one. It let Miller catch up a little bit, but I think then at that point, maybe started to push to try and close in a bit more and get to the rear bumper, and just found a little bit too much power under the right foot. It's dropped him back now. The gap is 1.6. He's very much out of slipstream now, and I'm sure Constantinu looking to just focus forward and try and make a run for this one.
Turn 7 turning into a bit of a bogey corner for Bailey Thompson, who's gone deep into that one on 2 consecutive laps. Manages to close into about 7/10 of a second on height in front, but just really struggling to get back onto the banking. Again, it's one of those corners where I think anyone who's ever turned a lap at Daytona will tell you it's probably the most difficult corner on the circuit. And Thompson really making a bit of a hash of it right now. If he wants to get back onto the rear end of height, he needs to get that corner tidied up, because it's going to give him the run that he needs down into the bus stop to try and make the same move that he did on lap 1. But for now, he just keeps losing touch at the absolute worst moment.
Yeah, it's difficult to control, it seems like, for Bailey in that WeatherTech car. Just almost replicated the esports line of turn 1, but in reverse. And yeah, just can't quite get back to the rear of Callie Height here. Those two are gonna be they are falling back from the lead 3. I think they just have that little bit more pace in the 56, 57, and 59. But the two of them really evenly matched, and again, it's even in the sense of they're both making mistakes at sort of similar rates, and so it's about who can get a handle of the car first, who will start to make those strides forward. Bia, by the way, now with a 2.4 second gap, has seen the mistakes from Miller behind and taken the opportunity to try and stretch her legs and really start to prevent Miller from fuel saving behind.
Well, we said it a couple of times, it is going to be about who gets on top of these cars first, and it looks like it is Bianca Constantinu. We've got 2 battles that are starting to emerge on track at the moment, both within about 6/10 of a second. It's that fight for P2 and that fight for P5 that just keep getting that a little bit closer lap by lap, as the slipstream, again, is going to be a big assist in keeping all of these cars, of these 4 cars, relatively close together in their fights. Rennie, though, just not closing up as much as she perhaps would have wanted on the brakes into turn 1. Derek Miller really got that car under control on corner entry, but not so much on corner exit, as that Mustang going for a bit of a wiggle between turns 1 and 2. But this fight for P4 has really started to close up yet again. Thompson just putting that pressure on Callie Height in front, who goes a little bit wide, and then a big kick of oversteer for the other Camaro. As within a 10th of a second as this fight now, as Height just disappears from this plane of existence for now, pops back in on the exit of turn 5. Thompson not getting the slipstream assist that they would have otherwise wanted on the run between turns 3 and turn 6, but can they get the car under control on the exit of turn 7 this time? Big on the brakes and a big moment under braking for Height, and that's going to leave her vulnerable on the run down to the bus stop. This could be the opportunity for Thompson to get past the car in front yet again. It's going to be a rehash of the lap 1 overtake that Thompson made on Height, as the speed is going to build in the slipstream for that WeatherTech Chevrolet Camaro. Height just disappearing yet again. It's going to interrupt the draft to the outside. Goes Thompson, who's going to be bravest on the brakes. Will Height back out again? Thompson just about gets clear for the first apex, as they are practically touching bumpers in the middle of that corner. Both of them getting a little bit loose on corner exit. And now it's Height who's going to be in the slipstream, who will have that chance to try and make the repacks. To the high side she pulls, but there's no speed up there yet. She's going to have to be a bit more patient if she wants to get back by. They are corner to corner, door to door, side by side on the run down to the start finish line. It'll be Callie Height at the start finish line. They'll stay almost side by side on the brakes, but Bailey Thompson, watching the car in front just blink out a little bit, decides to take things a little bit easier and wait for the repass.
Yeah, and you've got to think, if you're in the cockpit of that 27 car, it's got to be frustrating having to run this fight when you're not quite sure where Callie is. That move into the bus stop was very brave considering the circumstances, just about inch perfect for Thompson. But it's going to be a continuing factor, it seems like, and with how closely they're running, Thompson gets shuffled a little bit wide through turn 5, but Height a little bit of an oversteer moment on the exit. They are going to keep this close together, but again further ahead, Rebecca Rennie still putting pressure on Derek Miller, and Beatrice Stansnew with a slow lap, a 1:49.4 last time by, is going to bring those two back into the picture once again.
Lots of mistakes still happening up and down the field. Oh, excuse me, I caught a little bit of a frog in my throat there. But we just saw these two, Bailey Thompson and Callie Height, going nose to tail almost into turn 7 yet again, both of them making their own mistakes. It's very wide for Derek Miller through that 4th apex. So I'm looking for a potential slowdown for him there, but I just think he about managed to get away with that one, whereas in the background, I think Bailey Thompson just repassed Callie Height at exactly the same point on the track again. Height looking like she's recovering from a little bit of similar.
Height went deep into the bus stop and then had a bit of a spin, catching the grass on that final apex. Has dropped about 4 seconds back from Bailey Thompson now.
We'll take a look at it.
Is close to falling into a battle with Eva Melton now.
Oh, actually, let's try and stay with this fight for P2, even as... Oh, goodness me, just skip it forward a little bit. Derek Miller just drops behind Rebecca Rennie. That has been a move that's been coming for a while, and it was the mistake from Miller that made that one possible. As Rennie moves up into 2nd place, Miller has to get that car back, get those rear tires back down to temperature now.
Replay?
And think about repassing. Here comes the replay then of what happened down at the bus stop. You can see Callie Height on the right, can't see Callie Height on the right of your picture. Just gets a little bit deep into that 1st and 2nd apex, and then Bailey Thompson applying the pressure at apex 3 and 4, just forces Height out a little bit wide and onto the grass at that last apex of the bus stop. Back end comes out, and then absolutely no momentum coming out of it, and there's nothing she can do as Height drops down to 5th and it's almost ending up in a scrap with Eva Melton. But let's just try and stay focused on this fight for P2. These two drivers have been so close all race so far. Rennie looking for a way to get by Derek Miller. The opportunity presented itself down at turn 1, but it's a big dive on the brakes from Miller to try and close that gap, as there's a little bit of a concertina going on there that's going to bring him well into the slipstream of Rennie. That was very brave on the brakes from Miller, and I'm almost surprised he got that one stopped, so.
Yeah, and it looked like maybe that distraction in the mirror did catch out Rebecca a little bit. It's a brave enough move that you start wondering if you have to take evasive action because they've missed a braking point or something. But Miller's did a great job getting it stopped. He's now looking to the outside line to try and switch back to the 59 and is going to pull it off. Running too deep on the brakes into one, goes all the way to the outside of the track on exit. And Derek Miller back up into second place now.
We thought the esports line only worked in cars that actually had downforce, but Derek Miller making that very, very wide line work so well into turn one, forcing Rebecca Rennie very defensive on the inside as she just went wide of the apex and left herself vulnerable to attack on the exit of that corner. Miller taking advantage perfectly as it moves his way back up into P2, but Rennie isn't done with him yet, just had a peek down the inside into turn 6, couldn't get to his rear bumper, couldn't send a shot to the back of that Ford Mustang. Remember, these things are touring cars, stock cars, they've got doors, they've got roofs. These guys should be bumping and banging the entire way when we get towards the end of this race, but for now, keeping it relatively clean, but keep your eyes on this fight. 0.3 of a second is the gap. We've already seen how effective the slipstream is here at Daytona as both of these cars go screaming down towards the bus stop. But another fight emerging at the back of the field as well. Callie Height now dropped down to 6th place behind Eva Melton. These two within 1.1 seconds as we get a beautiful shot off the back of Melton's Mustang here as Height looking to try and get that gap closed in the slipstream. Only really going to be opportunities on the brakes. It looks like it's a bit of a lockup for Melton. She manages to get it into the corner. You saw that puff of smoke, but it's going to kill all of the momentum through the 3rd and 4th apex of the corner. 4/10 now is the gap as Height looking for a way to get past that car and move back up into the top 5.
Yeah, it was a mistake from Height in turn number 6 that let Eva Melton through, but is staying well within touching distance. We have 2 battles. It's actually Callie Height, hard left turn down onto pit road, and that might be a little bit too quick on entry. We'll see if she gets away with that one. But we are at the halfway point of this race now, and if you're expecting to make a pit stop, now is a good time to do it because you can get a fresh set of tyres, get full use out of both of your allotted sets, and it is going to be a stop here for Callie Height as the rest of the field carries on, and we'll see if anyone responds this time by.
Still looking comfy at the front of the field. Bianca Constantinu recovers quite well from that little bit of a slow lap she had earlier on, of course assisted by Miller and Rennie getting into it a little bit a couple of laps ago. That fight looking like it's set to continue for the rest of it, but just for the moment, Miller seems to have the legs on Rennie, but we said that before, and these two close right the way back up to each other. Again, that slipstream being used to tremendous effect by Rennie to close that gap, but we've seen how good Miller is on the brakes in this car as the gap's going to stay stable on the way into the bus stop. We've got another very long run down towards the first braking zone of the lap. Rennie just doing everything she can to try and stay within the slipstream of the car in front. Those big wings poking a big hole in the air for the other drivers to drive into as the gap is going to close down a little bit yet again, but it's not going to be anywhere near enough for Rebecca Rennie to make any sort of move. I got to say though, pit stop wise, I was a little bit surprised that Height came in for tyres. It is expected to just be a little bit of a splash and dash in terms of fuel, but perhaps just feeling that set was a little bit past its sell-by date, needed some a touch different to try and, I don't know, just try and get some back from this race. It was a scruffy end to that half of that one, as Eva Melton is going to follow her down pit lane just a lap later, as that looks like it's going to be the fight for P5 that's going to stay close for the rest of this one.
Well, a lot of the drivers have had 2 seconds of fall off on their tyres just in those 8 or 9 laps. I think if you're going to make the stop, you're going to gain that additional time back with a fresh set. It's just a question of who in here is trying to make that fuel save happen, and crucially, are they going to be able to make it work? I think if they reduce pace, it could end up being a 16-lap race rather than a 17. That could change the calculations a fair bit. But obviously, if you've miscalculated that, you've got no chance really of making it work in the final lap. Callie Height will pull off that undercut effectively on Eva Melton, who comes back out of the pit lane in 6th place. We still have our top 4 out on track without a stop, and we're not mandatory, just expected to be required for the fuel tank.
Well, that
and of course,
is
if you extend the first stint, you're going to have fresh tyres to fight with at the end of the race.
I'll tell you what, that was a little bit marginal from Rebecca Rennie for the corner cut, potential slowdown at the bus stop, just about managed to keep it clean, and it's been enough to get her right on the rear end of Derek Miller yet again, who can't do anything against the extra speed that Chimera behind has at the moment. We've seen these two battle through turn one before. Miller, I think, braking a little bit early into the first corner this time. Rennie looking for a line on the outside, sending it just a touch wider than Miller in front, but Miller carrying that little bit extra mid-corner speed and picking up the throttle just later than Rennie, manages to hold on for now and actually extended the gap just a touch in that first sector. It's really the slipstream right now that's keeping Rennie in touch with that car in front, and there is potential, Liv, that Rennie is using this opportunity in the slipstream to save that fuel, save that extra 1.2 laps of, it's a lot of fuel, but definitely doable when you have a track like this, a track with this much slipstream, a track with this many opportunities to do big lifts and coasts. And Rennie is almost in the best spot to make this one happen. Has had slipstream for the majority of this race so far, as Miller goes very deep into turn 7 and then has a big kick of oversteer on exit. So perhaps she is looking to make that fuel save work, because she's not really looking that aggressive right now.
Yeah, of course, you've got to do it all by yourself here. We have the throttle maps, but those aren't fuel maps. That's just about the curve that your right foot applies 0 to 100% on the throttle. They're both going to go wide to that first hit. It's both going to pick up a slowdown here. So that's going to equalize them, but give Bia a good chance to extend that gap now to about 6 seconds at the front of the field. And I think the only concern for 57 now is what might happen in terms of strategy. I think we've now passed the point where you'd pit for 4 tires. Rebecca Rennie pulls in to pit lane, and this could be a splash and dash here. I think if you've waited this long, that's at the point where maybe saving the time in the stop is going to be worth it, but a big lock up there on entry. The tires will have time to cool down on the lane, but it's still going to be a little bit extra wear that you're not going to want to have to deal with.
Up on the jacks then goes Rebecca Rennie. It is going to be a fresh set of tires, which will be a relatively long pit stop as she gets away actually really quickly. Bailey Thompson has come down pit lane as well for their first, and we assume only pit stop.
We'd hope so.
But Bianca Constantini at the front of the field looking more than safe at the moment. 6 seconds clear of Derek Miller, and besides that one, well, we assume mistake on that one lap that let the 2 cars behind close back into within about 2 seconds. After those 2 started scrapping, she really started to get the hammer down as she opens that gap up to 6.3 seconds. Rebecca Rennie just off pit lane, 12.5 seconds clear of Bailey Thompson, who also pitted last lap. So now it's going to be a case of how effective is the undercut. We saw Callie Height pull it off earlier in this race, and it's going to be a question of can Rennie pull that one off as well. 34 seconds is the gap between her and Derek Miller in P2. She's been looking for a way past for so long at this point. And is it going to be the fresh tires that's going to give her the advantage that she needs? I'm just watching that gap extend a little bit by a couple of tenths on the relative. Derek Miller, we'd think, would be eyeing up pit lane right about now. I don't know if he's not going to come down this time by, but he's got to be thinking about it as Constantinu sets the fastest lap. Sorry, has previously set the fastest lap of the race. Timing boards, they flicked through it at just the wrong time that I thought it had just been set.
That is a fast lap though on 12 lap old tyres. That's a 1:48.1. That's less than a second from her best of the race. Remember, the fuel tank is going to start emptying out. That's going to save you time, but we're expecting the tyre wear to be a much bigger factor on these lap times. Bia doing a great job holding on with that lack of pressure behind. Gained more than a second on Miller that time by, who did stay out, is going to try and extend and maybe go for that splash and dash at the end. But Rebecca Rennie's going to be putting a lot of work into closing that gap. Currently a delta of 33 seconds exactly between the two of them. We'll see what she can do this time by.
And this is the question when it comes to tyre strategy. It's, do you want to react to the car that's pitted behind you, or do you want to try and create that offset? It's something we see in other forms of sprint racing so often, you might just wait a little bit longer to get onto that new set of tires so that at the end of the stint, you can still go fast relative to the car that you might be reacting to quite a bit later. But Rennie just did start to close the gap in a touch once those tires have come up to temperature. The gap got under 33 seconds for just a moment, but it seems like Derek Miller has found a little bit of extra pace from somewhere, or maybe Rennie's made a little bit of a mistake as that gap now opens back up to 35.4 seconds and leaves Miller relatively unthreatened for that P2 right now, as Bianca Constantinou is going to make a move for pit lane. Derek Miller then will lead a lap here at Daytona International Speedway as your previous race leader makes her way down pit lane. We expect it's going to be a tire change. Up on the jack she goes. 4 tires off, 4 tires on, and a splash of fuel. They are done at exactly the same time in this car. It should make the stop relatively short. Off the jack she goes. Big puff of tire smoke as she pulls out of pit lane. She's going to be keeping one eye in the mirror to see where she comes out relative to Rebecca Rennie, as it's going to give her a good idea as to where Derek Miller is going to be relative to her. But again, we talked about how a pit stop wasn't necessary, but was definitely something that was encouraged by the way these cars have been a little bit limited on their fuel tanks. So Miller, with about 5.5 minutes to go on this race, is being presented a bit of an opportunity to start to back the pace off a little bit, do some lift and coast, and try to extend his stint on these tires. How good is that fresh rubber going to be? To be honest, I don't think it's going to be worth 25.8 seconds for Bianca Constantinou, and it might all come down to a bit of fuel save that Miller may have done at the start of this race.
Yeah, if you're talking about right now, there's no way, even if you reduce the pace a massive amount, you can't get all of that done now. If Derek Miller is going to make this work, he has to have been planning it from the moment we went green and been keeping it up slowly all race. We'll see this time by. There's going to be 3 laps to go here. And it looks like the 56 does not have the extra fuel in the tank, is going to make that pit stop, go for the overcut on Bianca Constantinou. A nice and smooth pit entry, but I've got to say, maybe not the fastest and most aggressive entry. And now we're going to see Constantinou re-inherit the lead here, and the question becomes, how far back is Rebecca Rennie? Just exiting the bus stop now into NASCAR Turn 3. Miller on the jacks is going to be taking those 4 tires as everyone else has. And as Miller rolls out of the box, Rennie is coming towards the tri-oval into the restart zone for the oval races. And this is going to be a very close fight on pit exit between the two of them here.
There goes Constantinou back through to the lead. You can, well, I can almost see Derek Miller out there in the background. Rennie goes very deep into turn 1. It's going to kill all of the momentum on the exit of the corner, and her attempt at the undercut has not worked. She has lost about 2 seconds in that. We saw her as close as within half a second when these two were scrapping on track, but now Derek Miller has to get that fresh set of tires back up to temperature before he can start going fast. This should be a chance for Rennie to close the gap back in, but after that moment at turn 1, the tires might just be a little bit too hot to make that work and give Miller the breathing room he needs to bring the tires into the window and then start to pull away. He's not going to have a chance, I don't think. Well, he's not going to have a chance to close onto the back of Bianca Constantinou, who's 10 seconds clear at the front of the field. A great job from her in this race so far. She'll obviously be hoping to carry that through into the sprint race, but Miller 2.4 seconds clear of the driver that's been his biggest rival on track so far, and it does look like the order will stay as it started before that pit stop cycle. Constantinou first, Miller second, and Rennie in third.
And I do wonder whether Rennie came out of pit lane, knew that she had to try and make that gap up on the fresh tires and maybe just overextended a bit. The thing with these cars is you've got to be smooth with them. You've got to not take too much into each braking zone, into each corner. And I wonder whether that was the problem that Rennie came up against. Derek Miller obviously just tiptoeing on the old tires, trying to make that overcut work. And that driving style suits you well in these cars. So great job from the 56 to hold on to that forward 1-2. And now has a 2.6 second lead as we look through the field there. Even Melton just a couple seconds back off Callie Height in that battle for 5th. But Derek Miller holding on to 2nd place right now and looking to defend it with just 2 laps to go in this race.
Gap just starting to open itself up a little bit between these 2 cars again. Rennie just seeming to be struggling on this fresh set with this car in the second half of this race. You can see her working the wheel through turn 5 and down into turn 6. This car is, as we say, notoriously difficult to drive and has certainly caught a few people out on a couple of occasions today, particularly down here into turn 7, where both of these drivers have had their own moments, often at the same time. But as Rebecca Rennie almost proving my point as I say it, big kick of oversteer as she makes her way back onto the banking. I don't know what it is about the surface, the tarmac down there, but it's just so much slippier than the entire rest of the circuit. Of course, this track was repaved, I think, back in 2008, which is the version that we have in the sim.
2011, I believe.
That late,
it was after a quite disastrous Daytona 500 with multiple red flags for potholes forming on the banking. They took some time, got the thing repaved. Of course, a couple of years later, built these brand new grandstands on the front stretch here and removed backstretch ones for a bit of RV parking. But as we come to the final lap, it is worth mentioning Bea Constantinu's gone fastest lap the past 2 times by with 1:47.0. That does award an extra point. So the 57 looking to take maximum honours from this opening race of the season. Derek Miller, of course, not quite able to match that lap time. I think just trying to defend from Rebecca Rennie here. But with a 4-second gap here, this could be the opportunity on those freshest tyres to try and make a swing to maybe see how deep into the 47s.
Quick hands.
Yeah, goodness me.
We can tell Bea's still pushing, can't we?
Whoa. She's still going for it as well. It's another snap of oversteer on the brakes into 7 as the car keeps sliding onto the banking. Constantinu is doing absolutely everything she can to lose this race right now. That Mustang all over the shop through turn 6 and 7, perhaps putting on a little bit of a show for us in the broadcast booth, as it's been a dominant race from Constantinu, who looks like she hasn't felt any amount of pressure from any of the cars behind her. She makes her way through the bus stop for the final time. Another little kick of oversteer as she comes through the chicane and back onto the banking yet again, a little bit further down the field. The gap hasn't quite closed in that fight for 5th, as Constantinu from pole almost led every lap, just pitted 1 lap too early to take the Grand Slam, starts that weave to celebrate, and the winner of the feature race, Bianca Constantinu.
We did mention that the lot differential was more akin to a drift car. Bea showed us exactly how that works, and even more in the celebrations through turn number 1. I think some inspiration from SVG maybe, and his hijinks in these sort of cars. Further back in the field, Derek Miller and Rebecca Rennie do round out our podium, and Callie Height had a spin through the oval entry of turn number 6 on that final lap. It's let Eva Melton back through for P5, and it's going to be Bailey Thompson who's just taken the line 4th position. Eva Melton coming through the tri-oval to take 5th, and then Callie Height rounding out your 6-car field, as Bea might need a black flag clear here.
Leaving it
I think
a little
may
bit.
have gone a little bit the wrong way, as deemed by iRacing.
Countdown timer hasn't quite kicked in for the end of the race yet. Maybe save the celebrations for a little bit later. Is that?
Oh no!
It looks like it might have actually been a server-side DQ for Constantinu, but I'm sure she will be registered as the winner of that race. So a lot to look at for a lot of the field today. A lot of drivers struggling with that car in the first race. They're going to have another go at it in about 10 minutes time as we move into a short break between the feature and the sprint. It will be a half race distance from the one that we just did. And I think surprisingly, there was a lot of really good battling out there on track. There's your unofficial results. Konstantinu up there in first. No, those aren't your official. That's the one it's reset to. That's your warm-up results. iRacing is not giving us what we need right now, but Konstantinu did take the win in the feature race. It was Derek Miller in second. Third place did go to, oh goodness gracious me, Rebecca Rennie. Fourth place was Bailey Thompson, and then it was Eva Melton and Kelly Height down there in sixth. Oh, what can we say, Liv? These cars difficult to drive. We said they were difficult to drive. We highlighted why they were difficult to drive, and everyone proved to us that they were difficult to drive. I don't think any of the drivers out there, I've said drive way too many times, went through that race without making some sort of mistake. So in these 10 minutes, what can you do to reset and get yourself back in the right headspace to go again?
I think the main thing's going to be, I think you want to take a couple laps out on track and just practice those cold tires once again. It's a tricky thing to do. But it's going to be experience. I will say that reminded me, of course, this series has big Gran Turismo heritage, and that felt like a really solid Daily Race C, where everyone is going for a similar strategy, but it's about when you execute it, when you make that pit stop, and just trying to be as smooth as possible outside of those phases. So a great show from them. This one, the sprint race, through more of Daily Race A, it's going to be all out, no pit stops, no letting off. It's just about keeping the tires alive for as long as you can.
So in this little bit of downtime between races, it does look like Bianca Konstantinu wants to come in and have a chat with us about that race. Liv, I'll hand this one over to you, as you have a chance to speak to our feature race winner.
Hello, Pia.
Hi.
I can see you're excited about that one at the end of the race there. It was quite a show. But just talk us through that. How tricky are these cars to drive, and how do you handle that in this?
Scary. Very, very scary, and very, very carefully. You saw I had a whole bunch of moments early in the race, because I'm sorry. First of all, I'm sorry. I have like a bit of a cold and a fever right now, so that's messing with my voice a bit. But it was really, really tough, especially at the start, before you can get into a rhythm, because when these cars are on cold tires, they're at their fastest, but they're also at their most dangerous, it feels like. And once you sort of wear into them a little bit and you get into a rhythm, they get a little easier to drive. Maybe it's also you get used to driving them. But they are so tough. And especially at this track, I've said it before on Twitter, these cars, they highlight Daytona's worst characteristics, because these cars have great turn-in, but they are completely dead in the mid-corner. And then they are absolutely horrible to drive on exit. They will slide, and you have to have a feather foot on the throttle on exit. I was battling the track all race. I mean, I was really worried a couple of times, because Derek was pretty fast. I was just worried about not making the mistakes. And yeah, in the end it was fine, but man, that was fun.
And you are, despite iRacing's best efforts, I think going to start this sprint race now from the back of the field and have to work your way through. So how did your approach change on the start here to try and use those 15 minutes as efficiently as possible? It's not a long race, but you've surely got to trust your pace to try and get through. And what's your approach going to be for that?
Yeah, kind of same thing, except be a little more careful, because I don't want to accidentally dump someone. It's happened before in sprint races in other leagues, and I really don't want to put myself and other drivers through that mess. It's just going to have to be about being patient, making passes where you can, not waiting around too much, because, even if, I feel like I'm the fastest car here, if you let someone get away, there might not be, especially in like a short 15-minute race, you might not be able to catch them back. So it's going to be about efficiency, really. driving fast but not stupid.
Well, I wish you the best of luck. Let you get back to a little bit of practice, but before you go, any shout-outs, any sponsors, anyone who want to say thank you to, the floor is yours. Congratulations on a fantastic feature race win.
Thank you. Big shout out to James from Stepping Stone and the whole team. Shout out to Jones Racing Setups and 213 Simware, and and shout out to my mom for letting me do all this stuff and help me out in terms of the rig I have and whatnot.
Well, thank you for joining us, and we might see you at the end of the next one.
Yeah, thank you.
So I think we've got time to very quickly talk to our second place finisher in this race before we move into the sprint race. Derek Miller, second place finish, and I think between now and the last time I saw you, these are very different cars to the Super Formula.
Yeah, these are definitely new. I just bought these. So difficult to get speed out of. But yeah, it's a lot of fun. I enjoyed that a lot.
Yeah, I was going to say, it did look more than a little bit tricky out there on track. A couple of lockups and a few moments into turn 7 for not only you, but the entire rest of the field. What is it about this car that makes it such a unique driving experience and so difficult to get a handle of?
I'm not sure, honestly. Somehow the front end either sticks or it doesn't. It's so sensitive to pedal input that, one corner the back end is snapping, and then the next corner you just turn in and nothing happens. It's kind of hit or miss. I don't know. It's probably a skill issue, but I need to just figure out how to get pace out of it without making those mistakes.
Well, you have had a little bit of time to think on the results of this race, so hopefully you do have a chance to reset for the next one. I thank you for taking a second to come and talk to us, and good luck in the sprint race.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you.
So unfortunately, I think we are going to run out of time to have a chat to Rebecca Rennie, but it's really good to have a chat to the top 2 finishers in this race to try and unpack a little bit of what happened there. But of course, in a couple of minutes' time, we do have another go around for a 15-minute sprint race with a reverse grid. Typically, it would be a top 8 reverse grid, Liv, I think is what you told me earlier on.
Up to 8 will be reversed. Here, we're going to have, unfortunately, Callie is not going to be able to stick around for that sprint race, so it'll be even Melton and Bailey Thompson your front row for this one, with, of course, Beatrice Stantanu being put to the back of the field, having to cut her way through within these, what should be 9 laps at Daytona.
So yeah, a much shorter race than the one that we just saw, and hopefully it means we're going to see a significant amount more aggression from these drivers. I talked about how these are touring cars. These are little Australian stock cars that can take a little bit of a beating if you are willing to give it, as Rennie, just a big staff of oversteer on the exit of the horseshoe. That's something we've been saying a lot today, but again, there's a lot of grunt under your right foot, and if you get it wrong on cold tires, you are going for a spin. But hopefully our drivers have had a chance to learn the car, analyze what may have gone wrong in that 30-minute race to apply it to the much shorter sprint race, which is oftentimes an exciting little a more exciting little bit of an event. As the grid's reversed as well, everyone's a little bit mixed up. We've got cars out of place, out of order, and I think more racing series need to do this because it keeps things very fresh and just a little bit more interesting.
Yeah, of course, 25 points plus those 2 bonuses being awarded to Bia for that feature race win. It'll be 15 for a win in the sprint race here, plus another fastest lap point on offer as well. So not quite the same level of points on offer, but still a good haul available to try and bounce back from maybe a weaker opening start to the afternoon. And we are going to head over to our grid now.
So we'll take a second then to have a look down at the grid and see exactly how it'll line up for, oh, it's a surprise night race.
Oh, I think we were expecting it to at least be sunset, but we have moved forward quite a bit in time here.
I love that. So that's going to introduce a whole new dynamic to this race, as track temps are going to be much lower than in that first race. That grid hasn't reversed.
It has. It's just that B has been put.
Oh, that's the one.
Because
so I think Bianca is going to take an EOL.
yeah, it's.
So it will be Eva Melton. No, it won't. Will it be Eva Melton that starts? Eva Melton starts from the pole, and Bailey Thompson will start in second place. You can see Bianca shuffle into the back of the field. Rebecca Rennie moves up a position to start alongside Thompson, and it will be Derek Miller and Bianca Constantinou at the back of the field. Bianca, a little bit of work to do to get through those 5 cars in front of her. Of course, we are 1 car short for this 15-minute sprint race. So keep an eye on the 57 as we look towards this race going green, Liv.
Yeah, and of course, we've got the rest of the calendar on show there. Watkins Glen, the race next. That'll be a rain race. Very excited for that one. Long Beach, Laguna Seca as well. Spots, of course, open in the lead. Just go to ABN esports.com, go to the VRR page, and you'll find all the information you need.
So the BMW pace car will lead the field back round to the front stretch as we get ready to go for this night race, emulating wonderfully the race at Sydney Motorsport Park in real life earlier today. Pace car pulls in. It will be Eva Melton controlling the field on the inside. The green flag is in the air and the field gets away very cleanly. It's a bit of a wiggle for Bailey Thompson on the outside. Rebecca Rennie is going to move up into second almost straight away. It's probably going to be exactly what she wants. It goes very deep into 1. It's a shot to the rear on Eva Melton. Constantinou is going to squeeze through on Derek Miller as he gets shuffled down into 5th place even. Side by side for Thompson and Constantinou. Almost a little bit of contact in the braking zone as Miller looks for a way to get by Constantinou into turn 3. Can't quite find one, but Bailey Thompson just opens up a gap on the inside for Miller to slip his way into. But looking back to the front of the field, Rebecca Rennie is applying that pressure to Eva Melton. Peaks to the inside of turn 6. Doesn't get it done there, but Melton with a big snap of oversteer on the brakes. That might open the door for Rennie to make a move as we come down to the very tricky turn 7, but it's another snap of oversteer, this time for Rennie, as she's going to have to wait for that chance to get by. But now here comes that run down to the bus stop. Everyone tripping over and clambering over each other for track position. It's going to be all 5 cars within slipstream of each other as those V8s are going to scream their way down to the bus stop for the first time.
Yeah, and you can see Bia's going to look for the move. It's going to go to the inside. Thompson goes for a defense, but Bia's still there. Rennie's going to back out. Bailey's going to send it on Rebecca Rennie, actually. 59 forced to bail out of the corner there. So you get a slowdown. And that'll promote Bia up into 3rd place. I thought that Bailey was just looking to cover off that move from Bia there, but actually sends one deep to the inside there. Gets to the door of Rebecca Rennie, and that is going to shuffle the 59 to the back of the field. And it's still, it's going to be Eva Melton Thompson still at the front of the field here after starting on the front row.
Rennie looks like she's still got some momentum on Miller as Miller goes very deep into 1. We have seen him take that line before, but that is certainly not the line he was going for. Rennie is going to slip through and start looking to apply some pressure to Bianca Constantinou, who is really taking her time. She said she didn't want to take anyone out in this race, but has done a really good job to make her way up into 3rd. Bailey Thompson just 2 tenths in front of her at the moment. But Eva Melton, a second clear of the rest of the field so far, taking advantage of that reverse grid to try and build a little bit of a gap over everyone else behind her and try and secure as good a position as she can in this race. Thompson is going to get a touch checked up into that second horseshoe and take a shot to the rear from Constantinou, who looks right, dives around the outside. Thompson getting all sorts of out of shape on the left-hand side of the track. Shuffles Constantinou out a little bit wide, lets the gap open up to the car in front, whilst everyone gets underneath the rear wing of Thompson. Rennie from 2/10 back on Constantinu is going to be looking for a run down into the bus stop. Constantinu just lifted out of the throttle a little bit to try and force a run. Thompson defends aggressively to the inside, then moves back to the right. There's a bit of door rubbing from both of those drivers. Constantinu a little bit deep, a shot to the rear for that black Mustang, and it will be position made for Constantinu as she makes her way up into second place. Bailey Thompson gets shuffled down to third.
No, slow down there. This is a masterclass in defensive driving from Bailey Thompson here, forcing Bia to really work for it. You can tell that the patience is starting to run out a little bit, but I think at the same time it's a fun battle between these two. Bia still trying to bleed a little bit. That slowdown gets it wound up just in time to stay ahead of Miller, who's going to look for the outside, but maybe open the door for Rebecca Rennie behind. And advantage even Melton all of this, because that's now a 1.5 to 2 second gap that she's been able to build with Thompson playing rear gunner here, trying to defend from Bia in the field behind.
There are 5 cars in this race, and by all normal metrics, this should be a terrible race, but these 5 drivers are giving it absolutely everything in this 15-minute sprint race. Miller and Rennie almost knocking the doors off each other as Melton makes a mistake into turn 6. It's going to check Thompson up and bring Constantinu back into it. They were almost 3 wide for a second there. Constantinu choosing not to get involved in that one. Pinches Thompson to the inside of 7. Melton on a very wide line. As you'd say, Liv, all 5 of these cars are now underneath a blanket on the run down towards the bus stop.
Within
Melton
8/10
on the high side. And it's Bailey on the inside. Constantinu looking maybe for a little bit of bump draft to build a little bit of momentum. With that downhill at the end of the banking, Melton has built some momentum. As they're going to go side by side into the bus stop, it's a touch of contact between Thompson and Melton. Melton to the inside of the bus stop will pick up a multitude of slowdowns, and in a matter of corners has gone from first to last. Bailey Thompson will lead the field across the start-finish line. 5 minutes down in this race, and I am almost out of breath.
And Derek Miller now has a bit of a run on Bia Constantinu, who's going to have to go to the outside, where we've seen Miller overshoot a good couple of times, but might have a bit of confidence out there. Bia's just going to stay level here, get to the apex, sort of block Miller out a little bit, and as the corner progresses, just not to be able to find the traction on the outside. Miller to slot in behind, and now being under a bit of pressure from Rebecca Rennie. The question is going to be, how does Bia now set this move up? No car ahead to worry about. This is going to be for the race leaders. Rebecca Rennie oversteer on the exit of the International Horseshoe and go around on the throttle. That will move Eva Melton back into 4th place. But back to the front of your field, you see the defense there so far to the inside from the 27. I saw on lap 1, Bia looked to try and get the switch back into the International Horseshoe.
That's the shot almost.
A little bit of contact, just a little bit deep. Under braking from Bia is going to give Derek Miller the opportunity.
He doesn't take it.
They are. I mean, she still had the momentum. Ultimately, is able to slot back in and crucially get into the draft of Bailey again. A little bit of damage on the rear right of that car. I'm not sure whether Bia has some matching damage on the front left. It'll just be cosmetic, you'd think, in these cars. And Bailey doing an incredible job holding off this pressure, but how much longer can they manage it?
That is the widest Chevrolet Camaro V8 supercar I have seen in my entire life. But a car that wide is going to be punching quite the hole in the air that Constantinu very much taking advantage of right now as the speed builds down towards the tri-oval. Is she going to look for a way by? Both cars move to the high side of the track. Constantinu side by side on the brakes into 1. Derek Miller not far behind, just about gets clear of Thompson, but can't tuck the car back into the apex. Miller is gonna slide through into turn 2 as this fight that we were waiting for all race long is gonna reignite. Constantinu deep on the brakes. It's gonna be Miller that has to avoid a big snap of oversteer mid-corner. Constantinu moves back up into 2nd, and Bailey Thompson continues in 1st.
And that was the move, that was the crossover that Bia was looking for on lap 1 on Thompson. Manages to find it, to fight back against Derek Miller, but just seeing the tyres absolutely shredded between all of these cars behind. I'm not sure how well Bailey's been able to hold onto the tyres in front, taking those narrow lines on entry, but hasn't been given the opportunity. I think you're really seeing those slides from Bia and Derek right now. You've got to wonder, have they missed their chance here? We're expecting 4 laps left at the start-finish line. There's still time to make this happen, but you can't just throw a move every corner. You've got to set it up so that you have something to fight with when you do make that move.
So it's not just oval cars where that's the case, but Thompson very wide into the bus stop, loses a lot of momentum, big in the middle of the corner. It's going to create an opportunity for Constantini, but she can't capitalize on that high line, that much longer route through NASCAR 3 and 4, as these cars almost look like NASCARs coming through that banking. The slipstream is going to help Constantini build the speed. She's going to get alongside a lot earlier this time. She almost cleared Thompson on the brakes a couple of laps ago. Is she going to be able to do it again? No. Thompson aggressive on the brakes on the inside. All of these drivers almost looking like they're hunting for clean air, but Constantini, we know, really good on the exit of turn 1. On that tight line, maintains a bit of overlap, but chooses to back out of it, and maybe waiting for another opportunity to get by Thompson. A shot to the rear just before the apex of turn 3. It isn't going to affect Thompson too much, but all of this checking up from the top 2 is letting Derek Miller make his way back into this fight, as that Vodafone Ford Mustang is looking for a way to get past Bianca Constantini. The 57 doing a great job to not only hold off the car behind, but try and mount an attack on the car in front. Big snap of oversteer from that black Mustang, as it's going to take a chance away into 7. You'll see Constantini take a much tighter line on the exit of this corner. She seems to have figured out that this car really, really likes to exit a corner straight, but Thompson just carries a lot more momentum on the outside. It's going to be tricky for Constantini to get by, but once again, we are back on the banking. The speed is going to build yet again. We are developing a bit of a 3-car draft pack yet again. Bailey defends aggressively to the inside. Constantini to the outside. Is she going to try and clear them on the brakes? She's going to make an effort of it, but is going to be forced across the grass as Miller has to check up big time, as all 3 of these cars lose momentum.
And Bia's got a slowdown there. He's going to have to give the spot up to Derek Miller here and have to fight that one back into turn number 1. We've only got 3 laps left in this race. Bailey Thompson just forcing mistakes out of these cars behind as they try and hunt for any gap available. Bia's going to try and look to the outside to try and get a move back around Derek Miller. Still only about 6/10 back from Bailey in the lead of the race, as Miller dives into the apex there of 1. He's going to watch out a little bit on exit. Bia maybe going to look for the crossover, try and get to the inside of turn of the horseshoe once again. Oh! Miller goes deep, just about misses the rear end of Bailey Thompson. That is going to promote Eva Melton into 3rd place here. And now Bia has a fresh view of Bailey, and this time has no pressure behind to focus on. We've got 2.5 laps to try and finally get this one done. Can she do it?
The entire booth collectively holding their breaths as Derek Miller went very deep on the brakes into turn 3. But Bianca Constantini has been looking for a way by Bailey Thompson all race long, and Thompson may have just provided the opportunity with a big snap of oversteer on the brakes on entry to 7. But look at the momentum that they're able to carry on the outside of that corner. But Constantini finally has the inside line on the run down to the bus stop. Thompson's going to have to slot in, try and find a little bit of slipstream to find an advantage. But look to the inside, has a little bit of a speed advantage on Constantini. Dives it in on the brakes. Bianca lets it happen. Can Bailey get it all checked up mid-corner? Yes, they can. Constantini's momentum has been absolutely stunted as these 2 cars went bumper to bumper through the bus stop. This is a position that Constantini has been in so many times before in this race, as they come to popsicle sticks this time by. Can Bianca Constantini make the move down into turn 1 that she's been hunting for for the last 13 minutes. She's going to back out of it this time, take a peek to the outside, look for some momentum through one, gets it, tucks back in by backing out of that run. Thompson has to get the exit as well. Both cars getting a very even run out of the corner as Constantinou peeks to the inside. Thompson defends middle, opens up the corner. Constantinou moves through to first, but for how long? Because here comes the exit. It's a shot to the rear from Bailey Thompson as they go side by side yet again down towards turn 5, which is a corner you can't go side by side through.
Oh no, Bailey Thompson has found a little bit too much in the way of battling there, has picked up a black flag. So all of that defense, all of that hard battling just ends up costing a little bit too much for the 27. Bia does finally get the move done, and Bailey hauled on for so long, but he's going to fall to the back of the field with that one. But you've got to say, what a fantastic show they've put on for us here. Derek Miller did get back around Eva Melton in turn number 1 there, and Bia, after 8 laps of attempts of door rubs, of side drafting games, finally gets the move done, finally get back to the lead of the race. That, of course, she had through most of the entire feature. What this does mean, though, she's not been able to go for a fastest lap in this one. Rebecca Rennie currently has it at a 48.9. Does Bia have anything left in the tyres to try and steal that final point and make it a perfect weekend for the 57 crew?
Well, a mistake for Eva Melton is going to move Rebecca Rennie back up into 4th place in this race, but eyes on Bianca Constantinou. She put on a show for us on the final lap of the feature. She's going to be looking for the fastest lap in this race, looking to take full points out of the sprint, as that looks like Bailey Thompson coming down pit lane to take their penalty. I'm not sure if it's a stop and go or a drive-through. Yeah. Here comes Constantinou then, trying to get every last drop of pace out of that rubber attached to all 4 corners of that Ford Mustang. I'm surprised that all 4 corners are still attached to that car with the amount of door banging and rubbing and barging these drivers have been doing. This is, goodness me, tripping up over my own words here. Bailey Thompson really struggling to get out of pit lane. And it does look like Constantinou has just been released on this lap. That car looks absolutely planted and so much quicker than everyone else around her. I don't have any sector times. I can't tell you how quick she's going, but we're going to get a chance to just enjoy the sights and sounds of a Ford Mustang V8 supercar here at Daytona. Of course, the NASCAR's here only a week or so ago doing exactly the same thing with almost identical engines underneath the hood. There's your sector splits then of her previous best. No, actually, this is the live lap. 28.0 for that 4th sector. Into the bus stop she goes for the final time. Look at all the work that suspension is doing, and look at all the steering inputs that Constantinou is having to make to keep that car under control. It is truly a fantastic combination of driver and car that makes these things so much fun to watch as the speed builds yet again up through 280 kilometers an hour. And from last on the grid, the winner of your sprint race, Bianca Constantinou, take a bow.
Derek Miller comes across the line second. Rebecca Rennie will come home third and crucially take that fastest lap point. Eva Melton just behind in 4th place, and then Bailey Thompson. A fantastic fight, is not going to take home the points they would have wanted here, but what a show from the 27 all race long with that defense. Gave us a lot to be excited about and a lot to look forward to for the rest of the season. If you want to join us, there's slots available on the grid. Next time out, it'll be a wet race at Watkins Glen. You won't want to miss that, whether it's from out in the stands or down on the track.
Speaking with a bit of bias there, are you racing 6 hours with the Glen winner, Olivia Hayward?
A little bit. But, I mean, if you know what these cars were hard to control in these conditions.
And the thing is, Watkins Glen is a fantastic track for these sorts of cars, just as a rule. I think the iRacing officials went there in week 1, and of course that was broadcasted. And I actually got to watch that one whilst I was at work, and it was an absolute banger of an event. So again, if you like the V8 supercars and you like the way they race, Watkins Glen is going to be one of the races to watch this season. Very hard to control car, very difficult to drive track, and the wet conditions just making things that a little bit extra bit of spicy. So here's your final results then. Bianca Constantini from 6th on the grid will take the win in the sprint, backing up her result in the feature. Derek Miller will bring home another 2nd place finish. Rebecca Rennie will finish 3rd yet again. Eva Melton up there in 4th. Bailey Thompson with that late penalty rounding out the field in 5th. And Kelly Height did not start.
Let's take this second to catch my breath here. Hopefully we'll get to have a word with those podium drivers once again, especially I cannot wait to hear what Bia has to say about that fight. Well, that was intense from start to finish.
Shall we find out exactly what Bia has to say about that fight? Goodness gracious me, what a battle that was. From end to end, that was all out, door to door, nose to tail. One of the best scraps I've seen on track in a while.
Yeah, a bit of a mess, if you ask me, but I don't think I should have been stuck that long behind a car that was that slow. So good defending though from Bailey. That was awesome. I tried my best. I know I roughed them up a little bit. That's racing, you know. That was just fun. I mean, yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
No, you go. It's your time.
Yeah. I mean, it was definitely a mess at the start to begin with, because I had no clue what everyone was gonna do, and I was just worried, you know, don't get dumped, don't get doored, don't get sent into the tire wall or something. And you know, once it ended up being between me and Bailey and Derek, it was cool. But like the first maybe lap or two, where I was sort of trying to just survive, that was probably the scariest part. From then on, it was just a bit frustrating, but it was fun. I mean, it was nice going back and forth. This track just creates such good racing. Yeah, I don't know what.
I was going to say, I think that is the beauty of these cars, is that you can use the bumper a little bit. You can be a little bit more aggressive, and it's what makes the racing in the V8 supercars so fun. And of course, the format of the sprint makes everything all that more dire and urgent. And so how did you find the switch from drive it safe to all out fighting?
It was more of an instinct thing. I mean, you know, when you're in the lead, you gotta be conservative. You gotta, you know, keep the car on the road, be safe and whatnot. Kind of all that just went out the window in this race. I mean, thanks to the feature race where I got like comfortable driving on the limit, it felt natural. It felt like I could be on the limit. It felt like, you know, I was confident on the brakes, which wasn't the case in the feature race. The night temps definitely helped. The car was a lot easier to drive. But yeah, it sort of, you still have the same sort of don't kill the car thought in the back of your head, but it was definitely more of a I want to win this race than a I want to survive in terms of my mentality.
Well, it certainly looked like it. You were throwing absolutely everything at the wall to see what stuck, and what a show it put on for absolutely everyone. I'm sure even the drivers on track were loving watching that one. But as we gave you in the first race, you're going to have another moment to shout anyone out that you want to.
Well, it's all the same people again. James from Stepping Stone for supporting me through all these years. And this whole team that I've been a part of. I hate myself for not putting the logo on the car. I did this scheme in like 10 minutes before the race. Big shout out to everyone on Twitter that actually sent me these pictures, because I had like a post telling people to fill up my car. Shout out to Jones Racing Setups for taking me on as their house driver, and 213 Simware for the merch they make.
Well, congratulations once again, Bia, on taking both race wins and putting on a hell of a show. Very much looking forward to Watkins Glen.
Yeah, great stuff. I can't wait.
So now we're going to go down to Olivia Hayward, who will be talking to your third place finisher, Rebecca Rennie.
Hi. Hey, Rebecca. A pair of third place finishes on the night here. And that was an action-packed one the whole way through in the sprint especially. Talk us through just how you settle into these cars and how much the dynamic changes once you get into that 15-minute format?
Yeah, these cars are like way more fun to race in like the shorter races, because in the longer one you just like have to save tires for so long in order for you to be able to like get it to the end. So yeah, the 15 minutes is way more fun. Just kind of shame it ended so early, or like battling ended so early, but yeah.
To talk us through sort of your experience driving cars like this, and especially given that next week we're heading into a storm at Watkins Glen, if you have any experience driving these in the wet and how you expect to handle that.
Yeah, I haven't run a single wet race, and this is my first race in this car. Actually, it's like first race in like a very long time in anything that's not F4. So obviously this saw it before. So yeah, I have to know how it's gonna go next week. Hope it's gonna be like better than today, but yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, spot on. Fantastic show. Definitely showed your strength there as well. I look forward to seeing you next week. But before you go, any shout outs, any sponsors, any thank yous? Floor's yours. Congratulations on a pair of podium finishes today.
Yeah, I would like to thank anyone that is watching and is cheering for me. I really appreciate that. Especially I want to say a big thank to my partner and to my friends that are watching. Yeah.
Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next week.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, Daytona promised, and it certainly delivered, putting on one heck of a show with a field even as short as 5 cars. The 30-minute feature race kept things interesting, watching as everyone really tried to get on top of the cars in race conditions. We still had those little almost hesitant learning scraps as the drivers tried to learn exactly what they could do in a battle with another car. And then to switch over to that 15-minute sprint race right at the end, after everyone had sort of figured the car out, I think gave us a really great opportunity to just see how well these cars race. Of course, the drivers talked about how the slightly lower track temps made things a little bit easier to drive out there on track. But Liv, what are your takeaways from that race?
I cannot wait to see what these drivers do for the rest of the season. I know we're going to have a couple more drivers expected at Watkins Glen next week. I would love to see even more people come out and give these cars a shot. We've got such a great calendar, and from the sounds of it, we might be seeing a lot more of that sprint race, shootout style racing for the rest of the season. So I'm so excited to see what happens next, because I came in expecting these cars to deliver, but not quite at that level.
I think I just really enjoyed the fact that everyone started to use the bumpers and the doors a little bit in that sprint race as well, and start to take advantage of the sort of hits that these cars can give and take, and it really added to the show. And especially with the intense format of a reverse grid 15-minute sprint where the fast drivers really have to come through the field, and it gives the drivers that didn't finish so well a great opportunity to really show what they're made of in a defensive capacity, which is what we saw from Bailey Thompson, who I think absolutely nailed the defense on Constantinu. Of course, there was that little oversteer moment that really opened the door for Bianca to move through, but it just made, I don't know, it just made everything so much better. And these guys racing around Watkins Glen in the wet in V8 supercars is gonna be absolutely amazing. So we certainly hope you folks at home join us next time. You can still sign up for this championship. These cars are great fun to drive, great fun to race, as you saw out there at Daytona tonight, and are going to be great fun to race for the rest of the season. I've been Taylor Mills. Alongside me in the booth, as always, my long-suffering co-commentator Olivia Hayward and Amity Pulsatrix pushing all them buttons. We will see you next time.